I mean, it's like Tiger Month.
It's Tiger Month.
I mean, you've got Tiger back for the hero.
Yep.
I mean, we haven't seen Tiger in action since the Open. Believe it or not. He has not been on the course that we've seen in front of a crowd since the Open. And he's going to be playing there. He's going to be playing the PNC. So we're going
to see him again. And stories trending, we're going to talk about he had COVID.
Yeah, so here's a kind of a funny one that's floating around. And, of course, a huge soundbite out of Rory McIlroy. So this was an interview he did with The Independent. Whether or not he actually gave him COVID is up for debate here. So I'll just kind of tell you the details. But either way, there was a moment there where I think Rory was like, oh, no. Like, did I just give Tiger Woods COVID? What had happened was, and we know this oftentimes for the Open, these guys will go over there early and start to get used to like links golf again and play as much as they can.
The times change. Yep.
Tiger and Rory were pairing up together. They were staying at Adair Manor, so they wanted to play some warm-up rounds. So this is the quote from Rory in that interview. He said, Tiger needed a rest on Wednesday. We played 2 days of golf at Adair, and the plan was to play Ballybunion on Thursday. Not a bad life.
Not a bad life.
I was
just thinking that.
These guys live. He said, I woke up that morning feeling a bit achy, but didn't really think anything of it.
This is Rory.
Oh,
yeah.
So the four of them, those two guys and their two managers, they hop in the helicopter. Again, not a bad life. They shoot down. They play a quick round that morning. I said he got around fine. Then they flew back to Adair for lunch. And they're sitting at the table, and he said he started to feel like really sick. Rory started to feel like something coming on. So he says to his wife, something's not right. I'm just not feeling right. I'm paraphrasing this part. But he says, I'm going to go upstairs to lie down for a bit. He slept for about 2 hours. He said sweat was just pouring off
there you go. You go.
So you know something's up. And now keep this in mind. Because this is kind of a crucial point here. This is the Thursday before the Open. So we're exactly one week out, right? So he said his wife took his temperature. It was sky high. So he calls up Tiger. He said, listen, I'm not feeling so good here. And Tiger said, I feel okay. But then he said later that night, 10 o'clock at night, Tiger texts him. He says he's got chills and a fever himself. So now Tiger's coming down something. So there's where the quote comes from. Rory says, effing hell. I've just given Tiger COVID. This is horrendous. So he said, so we both had COVID going into the Open. Now, to me, though, this opens up Pandora's box a bit.
Seriously, why did they play?
Right. Now, I'm thinking, and I was reading even some of the comments that people were saying, like, yeah, meanwhile, like earlier that year, Rahm had to withdraw with the lead. Because he had COVID.
Because they were testing.
How did these guys go on and play? Now, I thought there was really strict testing in England at the time. I don't know. This
past summer, I mean, we're talking I think they just lifted it in the summertime, right? When you went, Zach, right? I think right when you came back from your trip.
Yeah, so I went to Austria in June, and the week before we left, they raised the
they lifted
restrictions.
The restrictions.
So all you had to do was have either a vaccine, but they didn't even check it.
So the tour probably went with it and was like, we're not testing it.
Maybe, because I thought maybe it would be the RNA, right?
Yeah.
For the Open. And I would think like maybe they had some sort of testing. But here's the interesting part. In that interview, Rory never said whether he or Tiger ever officially got tested for COVID. But I mean, symptomatically, it sure sounds like it. Regardless whether they had COVID or the flu or whatever, they were both very sick the week before. I mean, you know, as an adult, you've got chills and a fever. You're pretty darn under the weather.
And wasn't Rory fighting for the lead at the Open?
He played lights out.
Yeah, so he recovered from COVID in less than a week and went and almost beat Cam Smith. Like,
interestingly, like both of them, if they wanted to, had built-in excuses that week.
Right
now, in hindsight, you think back of like Jordan winning with the flu and stuff like that. Ultimately, I'm sure these guys have access to the best possible health care, no matter whatever.
They're in tip-top shape.
Yeah,
I mean, Rory was probably.
And we're talking about a week later. They were probably better, but still, it still takes you out of your rhythm for some of those practice rounds. And it's interesting. This is kind of the first we're hearing about this, so it just shows you how kind of under wraps they kept that. But it's got to be a funny moment. Funny in a bad way when you're Rory and all of a sudden you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like I've spent all this time with Tiger. I'm sick. Now he's sick. Now, the only thing I would say is seemingly they both got really symptomatic within hours of each other. I would say chances are they both got it from someone else.
Right.
But
Right.
either way, huge story that just a
That's just so
bombshell that
interesting.
Rory drops on us in this interview with The Independent, that's saying that they both had COVID in just the days ahead.
Yeah, that's
Because, you know, if that had leaked, that would have been headlines everywhere. You know, days before the Open, Rory and Tiger have COVID. It would have been like, so there would have been like a lot of people with very tight lips that week.
100%. And even Tiger said that he couldn't taste or smell at St. Andrews. So, like, you know you're sick of COVID. You know you have it. But, like, this is your last Open championship at St. Andrews. There's nothing that's going to take him away. That's why I just kept it under wraps.
Interesting. So, I mean, I'm sure people have opinions on those. That's why, like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, the comments are open.
Yeah.
Get after it. Let us know what your opinions are either way. But interesting one. Very interesting. Like all of a sudden this revelation. He waits till December and drops that little bombshell on us.